first question will be for Randy. Do you support raising revenues or reducing expenses to balance the state budget? And then, how would you propose to do it?
Well, I think absolutely the first thing, and we've done this in the Glencore and the mayor, the first place you always start is looking at reducing expenses. And then that makes the most sense, because I think we will always find some ways to reduce expenses. But I think many times when you say, I'm just going to cut, if you don't change eligibility requirements, then you made a cut, but the need kind of still exists. So in a lot of parts in our budget, health and human services, if we change the eligibility requirements, we'll have fewer people that are available for the services. I don't mean to be cruel to people, but I know that we can find some that don't need it the way others do. So if we change those, we will automatically reduce some expenses. And I just think, though, across the board, we have to look at it. I don't think to cut expenses, with what's going on, $1.2 billion right now, and $4 to $5 billion possibly in the next couple of years. If anybody says to me that, you're going to have to take and look at everything in the entire budget, but you have to do it in a very pragmatic style. You can't say, I'm going to hold one thing harmless. I know that would be a fun thing to do, but you have to look at everything in the budget, and then not just cut, but figure out what happens, in what ways can you save expenses that will cut the budget in a more probably scientific fashion.
You reduce or cut expenses once again, just like Randy said, and that's paramount. You cannot, if something is being proposed and it does not fall into one of the 14 articles of the Minnesota State Constitution, it's not a good piece of legislation at all. There's no reason to compromise on it. There's no reason to meet on it. It's just something that has to come up. If possible, they either kill it in committee or kill it on the floor of the Senate. There's little or no reason ever to raise taxes in a true economy of conservatism never fails if it's allowed to work in a good economically that way. I'm also against the bonding bill here. I see that they're looking at upgrades for the Minnesota Zoo and connecting existing trails and new trails for a host of things here, paving and volleyball courts in Rochester for $5 million and more. Lots of things can be done.
I'm really not going to have time in 1 minute to make suggestions as to how to make the reform, but I will say this, that I'm not about to suggest any kind of tax increases. The state of Minnesota does not have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem. I've got a couple of flyers floating around here, a couple of pie charts. I want you to take a look at those and see where your money is being spent. That's why I passed them on. I've also got a graph that I'm trying to show where I'm comparing the population in 1960 versus the population now and how we have increased spending. And I want you to note that while our population is going up kind of gradually or linearly, the spending that we do is going up exponentially. And that's what I'm trying to show on that graph. So until you can prove to me that all of the $26 billion per year that we spend in this state, until you can prove to me that it is wisely spent, I will not support any tax increases.
I need to listen real carefully because I'm going to say something that some of you might hear wrong. I'm going to be a little bit different. I'm going to raise revenue. We are the fourth largest landholder in the United States. The state of Minnesota is. First proposal, sell land. That helps local school districts because it puts it back on the tax rolls if private individuals are owning the land. Okay? There's my big revenue thing. Cut the guaranteed pensions to state employees, including school districts and teachers. Nobody else gets it. piece is start taking, like Mr. Benoit pointed out, and dismantling the things that we've created over the last 4 or 5 decades in the state that have nothing to do with what the state should be involved in, and start throwing them in a can and getting rid of them. With those things gone, our budget goes down, our revenues are automatically going up because we've sold off land, and we're healthy again.
Thank you. All right, do we have any questions on taxes or budget?
Today, Mr. Newman, this is a nice little chart. I looked at it caucus night, and it's given me a lot to think about. If you notice that in 1980, the government budget was $1 billion, and it looks like in 2008 it was up to $26 billion. So, to give a perspective of that, if you had a 10-pound dumbbell, that's what the economy had to carry for the burden of government back in 1980. And now the burden of government would be about a 260-pound barbell. I mean, is it any of your belief that that's probably what take the economy and the government burdens a little too heavy? And an example would be gas would be $26 a gallon right now, compared to 1980 or what it was. So I mean, if you look at the proportion, what do you think would be reasonable, and how do we get back to it?
One thing that just came out in the news this past week, was interesting, and that's an excellent question, is taking a look at who is the highest paid employee in the city of Madison, Wisconsin. Would you believe the city bus driver? $156,000 a year. He makes more than the mayor and the city administrator. And you know why that is? Because he's been in the union, a public employees union. And the mayor has so much trouble negotiating union contracts with these employees of the city because he's getting his campaign is funded by the union. So look at the dilemma that we face. We take a look at education. We've got a very strong education union, and that's part of the problem there. So we've got some things we need to head off at the pass. But I think you take a look at the number of, you look at what is generated by the economy, and I was trying to think of the word capitalist before. Capitalist economy is so important. And the value of things that we're doing today over that time, if we weren't taxed so heavy, would be going right into pockets of hardworking people.
Just as a suggestion, get on your go to the revisor of statutes office and look up administrative rules. And I printed off a copy of it. I just brought one. You can look at it if you'd like. But I have, by my estimate, 100 agencies and boards on this list. And each agency, the 100 agencies and boards, have various chapters of rules that they have enacted, policed, and enforced. And within each of those chapters, there are thousands and thousands of rules. And each agency board that is on this list has to have people to write the rules, enforce the rules, and police the rules. So as a start, let's start taking a look at these regulations. We have so over-regulated ourselves, and our government has grown so big, it is such a behemoth, we can't control it anymore. So let's just start with the regulations as it's from a starting point.
When you look at one of the numbers, it's a little bit over $3 billion of state payroll. What that all includes and who that all includes, I'm not sure. It's just one of the numbers floating out there. The regulation and mandates are definitely a huge indirect and direct cost to all of us, whether they're privately, in business, or as taxpayers corporately. And those things, like Scott has indicated, they need to be looked at. And I would guess that the bulk of them could go away. Now, when it comes to you know, what are the simple fixes? How do we get back to $1 billion? I'm not sure that we can get back to $1 billion because we have the thing called inflation, where the Fed Reserve is in control of the money supply that has a direct effect on it. We have a bigger population. Health and Human Services we haven't talked about yet, and I think there are a lot of ineligible people that are partaking in that program, and we have these sanctuary cities that invite more and more and more of that into our state. We need to stop it, we need to reverse it, and be done with it. That will take down another area of the budget.
I think when we get legislators that are just plain willing to look at the different areas of the budget and really make the cuts to bureaucracies that we do not need, understand that there are some elements that we do need, but make those choices. Decide what's important to us and what is important and needed, and those things that we don't need that are more in the want category, we simply can't do them. And I think that's where it's got to go. Now that might seem like a simplistic answer, but this is a pretty tough issue to face. But we have to look at all the budget, and we have to have legislators that are willing and the experience to actually make the cuts to get us back to where we need to be.
I say we got time for 2 more questions, so.
When you look at the budget, and you talk about these numbers, you're going to cut this foolish program, that foolish program. I think it was a bill that said once Americans realize they can vote themselves a living, it's the end of the republic. Well, we've gotten there if you look at entitlement. And I don't really hear politicians having the guts to say, look at us and go, hey, you know what, here's the problem. You want a transfer payment, and you want it, whether it be you're a senior citizen, you want it from your grandchildren, whether you are a parent and you want somebody else to pay to educate your kid, or whatever it is, those are transfer payments. And they're automatic, they're already in law. And as you as an elected official, is any of you going to have the guts to stand up and say, you know what, there's no more free lunch. This is killing us. It's killing our children's future. Does any of you have the guts? Scott.
To answer your question, I remember back to what I did in 2005 when we had Judge Greg Johnson down in Ramsey County decided what were core and essential services, and those were welfare payments. And nowhere in our Constitution does it say that we are constitutionally obligated to provide welfare. And so what I did I have the guts? Yeah.